My name is Lila, and it's as balls out right now. And when it becomes hot as balls out, my family starts to garden. Well, this is the first time we've gardened in a few years, but farming's important, and it's actually the basis of all society. Is the ability to cultivate food in one place instead of following things around. Farming started in ancient Mesopotamia and has always been centered around river valleys where there's lots of fertile land and lots of accessible water, because they didn't have piping, they didn't have any of these fancy fun sprinklers like my dad has set up. And with the ability to cultivate crops in a domesticated area, that's domestication, is the ability to make it at home, came the domestication of animals like cows, cattle, really. Cows are a specific type of cattle. We could get into that, but I won't. Chickens, pigs, eventually turkeys, all sorts of stuff. Like, they were all once wild animals, and now they aren't. Now we have them on farms, and we are able to mass produce them. Around the world, multiple different types of farming techniques were developed, but specifically chinampas in the northern coast of South America, what is now South America, were one of the very first methods produced to water plants. They are asked about sometimes. Who knows? They were a big deal to my world teacher, so I'm going to make them a little bit of a big deal to you guys. And then in the Inca civilization, and there's a fuzzy, in the Inca civilization, in the Andes Mountains, also in South America, there wasn't a lot of very flat land. All the land was very tiered and raised because it was the mountains. So they developed tiered farming where the water would flow from the top, like, platform down through all of the next ones. And then fast forward a couple hundred years, really, the Industrial Revolution happened. And people started moving away from having farms like probably a little bit bigger than this, and with a few more crops than just beans and cucumbers, and some peppers and tomatoes and some strawberries. And they moved away from their small little family farms called subsistence farms, or enough to sustain them and maybe a few other villagers who worked artisan-based jobs, and into factories, because farming became automated with new inventions such as the tractor, harvester, all sorts of stuff. It became a lot easier. Fast forward more and more years, and now we have plumbing that works, and now you have sprinklers, and everything's more and more automated. But as farming becomes more and more mass-produced, there's lots of different environmental impacts. To produce as much as we do, at the rates we do, you need lots of space. And to find all of this space in lands where you're able to plant things, companies have taken to clear-cutting forests and completely destroying entire environments to plant a field of wheat. This isn't good, obviously, and as well as this, planting a single type of crop lowers the ability for soil to hold nutrients and ever retain any other sort of nutrient, yada yada yada, complete soil erosion, whatever. I entirely skipped slaves, didn't I? I entirely skipped slaves. Slaves are very important. Slaves are from Africa. Well, they are from Africa. Before slaves, it was indentured servitude, where criminals would go onto farms to work and pay off their debts or whatever, and then they'd eventually be freed. Whatever. I mean, they never really had much money after they were freed, but they were eventually freed, and they did have rights as people. Slaves, however, were taken into the mass abduction, really, it was mass abduction from Africa by European empires to work on plantations. A lot of these plantations were in the, at the time, newly founded American colonies, typically around the coast of South America, on the Atlantic Ocean, in the Caribbean, and the American South. It's kind of hard to enslave people when they have rights. But these slaves are important, and in all honesty, they're probably the entire basis of the society that we're able to have today. It's hot out, dude. I hate the sun. I'm a winter person. The slaves are honestly entirely the foundation of today's society, because white people or people that own plantations wouldn't have been able to make as much money as they did had they had to pay their workers or feed their workers enough or give them any sort of rights. So while slavery was objectively horrible ethically, it did make a lot of money and was very important to the worldwide economy. Back to modern day. Lots of plants, we have the ability to move plants all around the world super quickly with lots of invasive species. Really, I think everyone should go take an apes class to learn about that, because I think it's super important. I've taken an apes class myself and I loved it. Really, really interesting, and I think everybody should, of at least some kind, learn something about the environmental sciences. But really, that's it. We love farming. Farming's great. How do I turn this thing on? I know how to turn it on. There's a timer somewhere.